In 1991, two hikers in the Italian Alps stumbled across a frozen corpse sticking out of a glacier. They assumed it was a recent accident. It wasn't. The body was 5,300 years old. His name became Ötzi. And when scientists sequenced his DNA, they found something nobody expected. This man, living in Europe just 5,000 years ago, had dark skin.
Every human alive today produces a pigment called melanin. Think of it as a biological sunscreen built directly into your body. The more melanin you have, the darker your skin and the more protected you are.
For most animals, fur handles this job. The skin underneath a wolf, a chimpanzee, is surprisingly pale. It never needs to produce melanin because the fur is already blocking the sun. But somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million years ago, our ancestors made a trade. They lost the fur. And the reason why tells you everything about what kind of animal a human being actually is. Homo erectus didn't outrun predators. They outlasted prey. Persistence hunting, chasing animals not through speed but through endurance. Hour after hour under the direct African sun. Thick fur becomes a furnace during a 6-hour chase. The hominins who could shed heat survived. The ones who couldn't, overheated, failed, starved. Over hundreds of thousands of generations, fur disappeared. And the moment it did, bare skin was suddenly exposed to equatorial UV radiation for the first time. Natural selection had only one answer: more melanin. By the time Homo sapiens appeared in Africa around 300,000 years ago, every single human being on the planet had deeply paler skin. This wasn't variation, this was factory setting, the default, the only version that kept you alive. Then, around 60,000 years ago, some of those humans started walking north. Climate shifts turned the Sahara into grasslands. Corridors opened, animals moved, people followed. But as they moved further from the equator, the sun changed. At high latitudes, sunlight arrives at an angle, filtered through far more atmosphere. Most of the UVB radiation, the kind that makes vitamin D, never reaches the ground. And vitamin D isn't just a supplement you can ignore. It's a hormone that controls bone development, calcium absorption, immune function, and critically, the shape of the female pelvis. Without enough vitamin D, bones don't harden. Pelvises develop wrong. And a woman with a deformed pelvis faces a death sentence in childbirth before her genes can. Dark skin blocks 90% of UV. In Africa, the remaining 10% was more than enough. But in Northern Europe, where UV is already just a fraction of African levels, dark skin lets through maybe 1%. That's not enough. Not even close. This pressure existed for tens of thousands of years. And yet Cheddarman, 10,000 years, still had dark skin. Ötzi, for 35,000 years the filter ran, but the skin barely changed. The answer was hiding in what they were eating. Hunter-gatherers weren't relying on sunlight for vitamin D. Fatty fish, animal liver, bone marrow, eggs, all naturally loaded with vitamin D. The diet was solving the problem. Then agriculture arrived, and it didn't just change what people ate, it dismantled the entire system. Farmers ate grain: wheat, barley, porridge, bread. Grain is calorie-dense and storable. But no matter how much of it you eat, it contains virtually no vitamin. And farming communities couldn't just go hunting. Fields needed constant labor. They were tied to the land. The dietary backup that had protected dark-skinned Riens for 35,000 years vanished almost overnight. Now, the selection filter had nothing to counteract it. Women with slightly less melanin let in slightly more UV. Slightly more UV meant slightly more vitamin D. These women survived childbirth. Their darker-skinned neighbors increasingly did. Every generation, the same brutal arithmetic repeated. The skin was getting lighter. Not by choice, not by chance, by survival. But gradual pressure alone couldn't transform an entire continent in a few thousand years. It needed a catalyst. And then, one appeared. Somewhere in the Middle East or Southern Europe, in a single cell dividing inside a single person, one letter changed in a gene called SLC24A5. Out of 3 billion letters in the human genome, one was copied incorrectly. That single error reduced melanin production by 30 to 40%. The person born with this mutation was noticeably lighter. In the new agricultural world, they were also measurably healthier. They survived. Their children inherited the same mutation. Within 150 to 250 generations, roughly 3,000 to 5,000 years, that single copying error had swept through European farming populations entirely. But here is where the story gets stranger. That same mutation, SLC24A5, is almost completely absent in East Asian populations. And yet, East Asians also developed lighter skin. They just did it differently. Biologists call this convergent evolution, the same force that gave dolphins and sharks similar body shapes despite being completely unrelated. The environment sets a problem. Evolution finds a solution. Sometimes it finds the same solution twice. The color of your skin, wherever you are from, is not ancient. It is not deep. In evolutionary terms, it is almost brand new. And it happened not because of who your ancestors were, but because of what they ate.